Hi, it's Dr. Scott Watson. In this video, we're going to explain how to play eighth notes. We've learned a number of rhythms this year, but eighth notes are the shortest rhythm. I'd like to take a tour back over the rhythms we've learned thus far and explain to you how we got to where we're at right now and why it makes sense, why it's the next logical step to go into eighth notes. You'll remember that we first learned that the top number of a time signature tells us how many beats will be in a measure. In 4/4 time, there will be 4 beats in every measure. Rhythmically, first we learned about whole notes, which are so named because they take up the whole or the entire measure. So if there's 4 beats in a measure, a whole note is 4 beats. It's the entire measure. Of course, for every rhythm that we've learned, we've also learned a corresponding rest. So for instance, whole notes are 4 beats long. Well, there's a whole rest, and that is 4 beats of silence, or 4 beats of not playing. The next rhythm we learned was half notes. Half notes take up half the measure. If the measure is 4 beats long, half the measure is 2 beats long. So you could have a measure with 2 half notes, one on beat 1 and 2, another half note on the 3rd and 4th beat, right? Each half of the measure. You could also have a half rest for part of the measure, maybe a half note for beat 1 and 2, and then a half rest for beat 3 and 4. Next came quarter notes. Quarter notes are 1/4 or 1/4 of the measure. The measure is 4 beats. 1/4 of 4 is 1 beat. So a quarter note is 1 beat long. Therefore, if you had a quarter note on beat 1, on beat 2, on beat 3, and on beat 4, that would be 4 beats. It would fill up the entire measure. And of course, any one of those quarter notes could be replaced with a quarter rest, 1 beat of silence. So now it's time to learn about eighth notes. Eighth notes take up 1/8 of the measure, which is a half a beat. A single eighth note has a flag, but we're going to see eighth notes buddied up or paired up with a friend, with another eighth note. So when we see eighth notes at first, we're going to see them in pairs, meaning half a beat plus half a beat. 2 eighth notes take up an entire beat. And these 2 eighth notes, instead of having a flag along the side, like the single eighth note, the 2 eighth notes, when they're in pairs, are going to be connected with what is called a beam, a thick line that connects them. To get an idea how these rhythms, how eighth notes work in the context of music, let's take a look at an exercise in your Sound Innovations lesson book. This is exercise number 51, Rhythm Roundup, and each example has eighth notes as well as some of the other rhythms like quarters and halves and wholes. So example A starts with a measure of eighth notes. The way we'll count eighth notes is we'll add the syllable and in between each numbered beat. So instead of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, like we would have for quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, quarter note, we're going to say 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The and, represented by a plus sign, represents exactly halfway between the beat. Remember, eighth notes are a half a beat each. So 1 eighth note will go on the beginning of a beat, and the other eighth note will go on the second half of that beat. 1 and represents the beginning, and then the midpoint between beat 1 and beat 2. Anyway, we have a whole measure of eighth notes to begin example A. So we would count that 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We could clap it 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or you could play it on any note on your instrument. So I have a trumpet. I'm going to play that rhythm, an entire measure of eighth notes on a single note. Okay, now the second measure begins with a quarter note. We could say 1 and, it's just that nothing happens new on the and, on the midpoint. So I'm going to just say 1 to represent the quarter note. But then when we get to the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th beat, where we do have eighth notes, I will say 2 and 3 and 4 and. So the counts would be 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. And on trumpet. Okay, the third measure is easy, just a measure of quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, played. And then the last measure, half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 beats each. Okay, let's look at example B. I'm going to count the entire example where it goes from quarters to eighth. You'll notice I say just numbers and then numbers and. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 is how I say the first measure. Then the second measure, 1, 2, 3, 4, because there's a quarter rest on beat 4. Then 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And then the last 1, 2, 3, 4 for the whole note. And it sounds like this. Tell you what, why don't you count example C as I play it? You say the counts, and I will play example C. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and count. Hopefully you counted that correctly, but let's check it. Why don't you play example C? So get your instrument ready. On a single note, play example C, and I will count it. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, and play. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, and 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. Wonderful. Now that you understand what eighth notes are and how to play them, I'd like to put it into practice by performing a song. You could perform the song with me. I'll be playing it on trumpet. You play it on whatever band instrument you happen to have with you. We're going to perform exercise number 53, Pieces of 8, in the Sound Innovations lesson book. I think it'd be a good idea if each of you would review the note names one by one, just to make sure you understand what the notes are. And then, why don't we all review the rhythm together? So stop the video, review your notes, then turn it back on again, and we'll do the counts. Okay, so here are the counts using the system of counting that I demonstrated earlier in this video. 1 and 2 and ready, say the counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3 and 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4. All right, you've had the opportunity to review the note names, and we took a moment to review the counts. Some of you might also want to review fingerings on your instruments, or trombones, slide positions, mallet instruments, stickings. So take a moment to stop the video and review fingering if you think you need that, and then we're going to play Pieces of 8. Okay, so we're ready to play Pieces of 8, number 53 in your Sound Innovations lesson book. I'll be playing on trumpet. You play along with me on whatever instrument you play. And we're going to be using Smart Music. So I encourage any student who has Smart Music, please practice with Smart Music. Number 1, it's just a lot of fun. But number 2, it gives you experience playing along with a steady beat and hearing other instruments, the accompaniment track, and having to play along with that. All right, we're going to be playing at 92 beats per minute, which is the tempo, the metronome marking indicated in Smart Music. And I'm going to hit the play button. You'll hear 4 clicks, and then we'll all join in. Here we go. 1, 2, ready, play. Great. So how did you do if you played along with me? Were you able to keep up and play at the same rate as me and play the eighth notes along with me? I hope so. And if not, remember, just go back, review the counts, and try again. And again, I encourage you to practice with Smart Music. We're going to close this video on eighth notes with a little quiz. I'm going to show you some eighth notes on the screen, and I'd like you to tell me how many beats they add up to. Let's start very simple. Here's a single eighth note, and you remember the single eighth note has a flag. How many beats is a single eighth note? The correct answer is 1/2 a beat. Remember, a single eighth note is only half a beat. So here's another question. Here are two eighth notes, a pair of eighth notes, and you'll notice these two, like they often are connected with what is called a beam. How many beats is a pair of eighth notes, or two eighth notes? And the correct answer is 1 beat. Remember, if each eighth note is a half a beat, 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1. All right, let's get a little trickier. Here are 5 eighth notes. 2 of them are beamed together, and then another 2 of them are beamed together, but the 5th one is by itself. So that is how many beats of music? The correct answer, 5 eighth notes, is 2.5 beats of music. All right, hopefully you've increased in your understanding of eighth notes, and hopefully you can play eighth notes now on your instrument. So go ahead and practice some of the songs with eighth notes in your lesson book or in any of the music that you have access to. Good luck.